for the Navigating Age Tech webinar series. So my name is Nolana Neubauer, and I am one of the co-vice presidents with the HQPAC. And we're being joined today by uCarenet with their presentation title being Transforming the Homecare Marketplace.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We're quite excited about this opportunity, myself and Dr. Chasen.
Great. Next slide, Shabnam. All right, so just to give you all an overview of AgeWell, I'm sure all of you know what AgeWell is, but we always like to do this in case we have some newcomers. So AgeWell is an incredible network of centers of excellence where their vision is to focus on becoming Canada's leadership in technology and aging and really focusing on different benefits from around the world. And the mission of AgeWell is to be able to develop a community of researchers, older adults, caregivers, partners, and future leaders that accelerates the delivery of technology-based solutions that make meaningful difference in the lives of Canadians. And what's not included on here is we also like to think of our wonderful clinicians. That's really become one of the inspirations for trying to focus on this webinar series, bringing in different clinicians and other individuals to get the chance to learn more about some of these amazing startup companies. So our success story with AgeWell, so AgeWell started up in 2015. So they've been around for the last 5.5 years, and they have grown into incredible numbers, at least since I started. I started around the same time. So to date, AgeWell has 755 highly qualified personnel or grad students, undergrads, postdocs. They have more than 250 researchers. We see on the cross out here, it used to be 25 startups, but now AgeWell has helped to support 40 startups, which is amazing with the short time that AgeWell has been around. AgeWell now has 3 national innovation hubs, 43 universities and colleges across 8 provinces, 126 projects, and 4,700 plus engaged older adults and caregivers. So it's absolutely amazing with the network that's been established. And so OTAC is a newer group that is partnering with this webinar series. I am one of the co-founders of OTAC Canada, which really focuses on just trying to bring in the voice and bringing in different clinicians from occupational therapists through to nurses, physical therapists, and just giving them that opportunity to be able to learn more about startup companies and how they can get involved. What we have learned over the last couple of years is there have been silos, and by partnering with AgeWell, we're hoping to be able to help reduce this silo and give more opportunities for us to have a conversation. So now I'm just going to read off the bios of our incredible presenters. I know we're all super excited to hear about them. So I'm honored to be able to welcome Nectari Charitakis. So he's the co-founder of and CEO of uCarenet. He has over 25 years of experience in enterprise IT sales and marketing, 15 years gained through international leadership roles in Canada, the US, and Europe, working for companies such as AT&T Capital, Xerox, and the Hewlett-Packard. He is also best known for building new teams, bridging emerging solutions to market, and new revenue generation. So Nectari's personal experience with the care of his aging parents is what inspired him to create uCarenet's suite of tools for both caregivers and care seekers. And I think like many of us that have joined in the call, many of us have been brought forward in this area because of our love and for those that we've had to care for that are older adults. I'm also honored to welcome Dr. Martin Chason. He is currently the Medical Director of Palliative Care at William Osler Health System in Brampton, Ontario. He was previously the Medical Director, Palliative Care at the Ottawa Hospital Cancer Centre and the Palliative Rehabilitation Program at the Elizabeth Breer, Ottawa. He currently holds professorship at the Universities of Toronto, McMaster, Ottawa, and McGill, and has lectured internationally and nationally, including at an invitation to speak on palliative care in the House of Commons for Canada's Parliament. So absolutely incredible. So I'm going to stop it here and I'm going to pass it off to our speakers.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I will share my screen and we can start into our presentation. So today it's all about what we're doing as a company, uCarenet, and also what we're doing with Dr. Chasen and William Osler with regards to enabling e-health solutions to improve home and community care. So we heard about our bio, so I'll just skip forward. I spent a lot of time in assistive and long-term care, and it really gave me an opportunity to, I guess I don't want to use the word test, but it is really test, see what other families were encountering. And I took that as main impetus. So when we started uCarenet, we went out and we interviewed a lot of families. And what we basically heard were a couple of key messages. One is the lack of consistency. Families had a really big deal and problem dealing with different caregivers coming into the house at different hours. And it really established a bit of a disruption into the routine of their family member. The other big issue that they had was everything seemed to be under a time clock. Many times caregivers would show up for 45-minute shifts or an hour shift. They would have to get somebody dressed, fed for the day. They would run out and somebody else would run in at night. So the rapid time and the lack of consistency caused a lot of issues. The other thing that I found very interesting, and this is a problem that I encounter a lot, it's something referred to as the black hole or lack of information. Quite frankly, you really don't know who shows up, what time they showed up, what they did that day. But more importantly, we never had an idea as to what the physical and emotional condition was of the person that we were caring for. What and like all of us, we live very busy lives, right? We have our own families that we need to deal with, and ultimately all we want to be able to do is actually get our hands on information so we can make the right decisions and know if something's going wrong or if everything is right on demand, right? When it suits us, whether at work, whether at play, or whether at home. The other thing that I found very interesting is vulnerable people refuse to have to get help, and I understand that. Is they're afraid to show a sign of lack of independence, but more importantly, they're afraid of getting institutionalized. And at the end of the day, no matter what age you are, the most important thing is everybody wants to be able to remain at home. So this was the key impetus that we took. And then all of a sudden, as we all know, the pandemic hit last year and it just caused a lot of additional chaos. But I think what it magnified for everybody is one, COVID-19 made loneliness and isolation much harder, not only for seniors, but also for all vulnerable people. And for those of us that lived through the system, all it really helped to do was reconfirm that the system is broken, it's not working properly. There's no news there. Anybody who's following the media in the last 10 years knows that that is a major issue. I often get the question why I started this, and primarily the main reason is I want to help other families not encounter the same problems that myself and my family did. Even though my parents were entrenched in the Greek community, my mom being the president of the Women's Auxiliary for about 15 years, even though we had people refer to us within 2 degrees of separation, my parents ended up getting robbed twice. One from a caregiver that stole her checks and forged $800 to $900 checks from my dad, because putting it into an ATM, anything under $1,000 doesn't need a signature verification. Dad, though, was very sharp. At the end of the month, he picked that up, and sure enough, he was able to claim back the money, and that was okay. The second one was another beautiful caregiver that told my dad, I'm going to New York for the weekend. Can you lend me some money? I'll give it back to you on Monday. And then lo and behold, she flew off to Greece. We never seen her again. So part of the reason why I did it is to make sure that other families don't have to go through the problems that we did. The other question I get is, what's different from you? What's different about us is that we're very much on focus on making a social and a health impact. A lot of what we do for free. We bring tools and resources to families to be able to have an impact on Canada, to have an impact on society, and we're very much focused on being a value-based social enterprise. The other thing is data. Data insights is the most important thing, whether it's shift reports that we'll talk about later or having analytics and wellness summaries that you can monitor your family member is another. The other thing is we're a technology company. That's the most important thing. We are technology driven in everything that we do. And then finally, and I think this is very important, we're open system. The data, the application belongs to the family. Whether or not you use our booking platform to find a care provider or not, you could use the application and hire somebody through an agency, get somebody through a LIN, or even find the person next door, but you can still use the app to help manage your environment. And finally, the value that we look to provide is to provide tools in the hands of families and clinicians so that can customize and remotely manage a care plan to the family's needs. So that's the story about what we do. We have 3 great products within our realm. We have an awesome home care management platform in your pocket. We have a very cool universal translator that makes communication simpler, smarter, and faster. And the other thing, along with Dr. Chasen, we have an amazing and award-winning virtual care package for palliative care. And those are the three things that we'll be focusing on. With this vision in mind, we started 2 years ago to be able to develop this. As a caregiver,
you can develop your career, establish your own clients, and maximize your earning potential. How? Create your profile, post your qualifications, share a video discussing your experience, display your ratings and recommendations, search job opportunities, and get hired.
So let's drill down and see what exactly that means. So from a care management perspective, we have three key components. We have a component that helps people hire care. We have our home management app that helps them manage care, but we also have the opportunity to share care throughout the circle of care. Our home care booking platform is all about facilitating and making it easier to find people. What I think is fairly unique is the way that we go about matching families and the person they need care for with care providers. We focus on a couple of things and we make it very easy, very visually for people to follow. But I think over and above the skills that you're looking for, the time, the costing that you're looking for, we're really focused on getting a much better fit between the family member and the person providing care for them. So we also focus on what their interests are and what their languages are that they speak. So the more commonality, the more affinity you have within culture and with language, there better opportunity for there to be a fit and a better opportunity for the person at home to be comfortable. The second thing is once you find your care providers, you could actually do a search. Our algorithm will match you. You can look at their profiles. You can maintain your safety and your anonymity by messaging them through the platform, and only when you're comfortable to actually have a video call with them or meet them outside of the home can you go about doing that. And the third component is once you find the person that you want to hire, you can send them a job offer. And if they accept it, you can start your scheduling and you go forward. The other very critical point, and this is what I think is even the most important thing, is our remote management platform. One of the issues I mentioned earlier is that black hole where people don't know what's going on in the home. And the way we set it up is you get a notification when your care provider shows up. So now you know it's 2 o'clock, and in this case, Teresa has shown up. In order for her to close her shift and leave, at the end of the shift, she has to send you a shift summary. And it's a very simple thing to do through the phone. They just touch a couple of buttons, but at least this way you'll know what they did that day, what activities took place, and also the time that they left so that you could clock out and then you could pay them. The other important thing is we provide analytics through what we refer to as our wellness meter. So you'll notice there's 5 components in the bottom, and it's all touch screen, and we use emojis for everything. So what is the emotional, physiological condition of the parent that day? Are they happy? Are they sad? Or are they in a lot of pain? What is their hydration, their mobility, their hygiene, and also their continence? And what we do is we take trend lines and we actually send you reports. So if their mobility has been down, then maybe you should give them a little bit more exercise. More importantly, though, if their hydration is trending downwards, that's something you really have to be careful for. I almost lost my mom to dehydration, so I know this is a very, very sensitive issue. Same thing if they're incontinent. The more days that they're incontinent, then the chances are they're going to have more and more pain. And the other thing that we built into it is medication, a medication list and reminders. So whether mom's at home by herself and she's capable of using the app, you can send her reminders, or to the care provider. And the other nice thing is the next time you pop into the hospital, you go to your doctors and they ask you what medication the person is taking. You just open up your phone and you have your medication list there. The other important thing that we heard is we all get these phone calls. Oh, there's a doctor's meeting at March 19th at the following year. There's one in November. We take a little scribble note and then we forget about it. So what we built in was a calendar that could be shared with everybody within the family in the extended circle of care. You also have the capability that if your care provider goes to a shift and takes the parent to a doctor's appointment, in order to close out of that shift, they have to update the calendar. So this way there's no missing activities. The shift reports as well and the wellness meter could be shared with everybody. And the other thing that we heard from families is it would be nice if we could split the costing. So here you could actually receive your invoice and split it between the different members of your family. So where are we today? We have over 5,500 care providers signed up in Ontario and British Columbia with an average salary starting about $20 an hour. We're launching on March 15 our new site, And by June, we will be rolling out across Canada, which we're very happy about. The best thing is our booking platform is 100% free. And this is part of what we're trying to do back to help Canadians and really have a social impact. So we don't charge families anything for registering and searching. We don't charge care providers, nor do we uplift their fee. Whatever they charge the family is exactly what the family would end up paying for. And where we look to make money is in the higher value, which is our management app, completely optional. And as I said, for $15 a month, a family could use the app, whether they hire through us or any other agency, or whether they find care from their neighbor next door. And the most important thing is we're 100% open system. So the data is yours. Anytime you want, you can download your data. You can continue with any other environment. You don't have to worry about losing access to any of the information you have. So here you can have a historical record that provides you all the details you want. The other cool app that we have is uCarelingo. I made this through my experience of dealing with mom and her dementia. What I found is even though she was very good, her English was quite fluent, she had a good understanding of French. As her dementia progressed, she started losing it. So when we moved from assisted to long-term care, I did what a lot of people do. I had all these little stickies on the wall that were translating Greek into phonetic English. And from there, I actually progressed and developed this poster, which is available for download through our website. What I found is by adding a persona to the person that was lying in bed, all of a sudden the nurse or the clinician that was coming in was able to say, oh, this is Vula, she was a teacher, she's Greek. These are the things that distressed her. So we know that people with cognitive issues many times get agitated because they don't know what's going on. So just simply having that above my mom's bed that said, if I am agitated, just telling me that I'm pretty, made her smile, or a little caress to her hand would just make her smile. And then what we did is we had all these activities of daily living, we grouped them in pronouns, actions, activities, and things. So this way we're able, the provider coming into the room, or the clinician was able to easily or more easily translate to them. We got a lot of requests to make these into cue cards as big posters. So what we actually did is we took it one step further and we developed a mobile app, which, as I said earlier, it's about making communication, especially multilingual communication, faster, simpler, and smarter. And it focuses on three things. One is to remove language barriers. The other thing is to build bonds among people to help break down the isolation. And I think the most important thing is communicating effectively. It's very important for clinicians to be able to explain to the patient exactly what the situation is and what they're suggesting. But more importantly, it gives a great opportunity for the patient in their own language to be able to communicate back to their clinician and letting them know how they're feeling and whether or not they understand what's going on. So when it comes down to it, we translate it into 17 different languages. The whole idea about uCarelingo is to eliminate all those blank stares where people don't understand. I'm going to play a little short video and then I'm going to do a demo.
As the COVID-19 pandemic continues to grip our communities, lockdown restrictions and social distancing requirements can severely limit access to patients who depend on others for care. uCarelingo offers healthcare professionals easy-to-use digital tools to translate important information for patients and better understand their needs. With clear visual cues, uCarelingo translates 35 commonly used words and phrases related to care, wellness, and active daily living. Patients can now communicate their needs easily to care providers, getting the daily assistance they need and giving family members peace of mind. uCarelingo translates important COVID-19 screening questions, giving care providers the tools needed to assess and act on any risk situation. Everyone in the community can use uCarelingo to check in on aging seniors. Seniors feel less isolated or lonely when they know their neighbors are looking out for them. Real-time audio translation means care providers can have free-flowing conversations with their patients. Simply tap the microphone icon to chat and instantly brighten someone's day in one of 17 languages. The uCarelingo app, a faster, simpler, smarter way to communicate.
So there's a couple of things I want to point out. We elected to use visual and audio to help reinforce communication. So over and above showing an icon of what the activity is, by tapping it, as we heard, it will translate it and say that word in the person's native tongue. Community check-in. At this time of COVID and lockdown, we thought it was very important to share the love. So this section is very much focused on community volunteers or neighbors. You could very easily pop into your neighbor and ask them a series of questions to find out if they're feeling well, if they need some assistance, do they need their help getting their medication or some groceries. We talked about COVID-19. It's all about limiting the spread. This could be used at any public facility, such as a public library, a hospital. It could be used at airports to help screen people, so you could actually screen them in their language, as well as taxi drivers when you have people entering their car. But the most important thing when it comes to removing barriers is the active voice-to-voice translation. Now, I am smiling because at the start of it, Nolana said, yeah, she showed a lot of older people how to be able to demo it, connect on Zoom with their phone and project the screen. I wasn't able to figure it out, even though I've been in technology for 25 years. So you're gonna have to bear with me. I just want to take a moment to show you how it will work. So you're not going to see it very well, but the important thing is I want you to hear the audio. So by pressing the caregiver, good morning, how are you feeling today?
Buongiorno, come ti senti oggi?
Sento male, avevo un dolore a mia testa.
Oh, I feel bad. I had them in my head.
Sorry, that's my poor Italian. So the point here is you could easily communicate between a patient and tell them what you want, or to your neighbor, and in return, they'll be able to communicate to you in Italian. And you could just have this ongoing conversation back and forth. Is it the best solution in the market? Probably not. There's probably a lot more better translators. And what I mean by better translators, having a human to human that could sit there and be in your pockets every time you need to speak to somebody, you take them out. But we do realize and we do recognize that the options right now are either to book an formal translator, which is very expensive, especially if you're at a hospital, and this is where I'm emphasizing. So the easiest thing, and this is why it's the best solution out there, is you have the translator app in your hand. You could either use predefined and pre-recorded flows that we have, activities or COVID or community check-in, or you could use the active voice-to-voice translation to have a free-flowing conversation. At this point, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Dr. Chasen so he can share with you guys our amazing virtual care app, and I'll go off video not to distract.
Well, thank you very much to everybody for inviting us here tonight. I will say before I speak about the UK Relief app, which I thought was phenomenal when we started using it, is that this UK lingo I can personally attest to is very, very helpful. It gives a good number of languages. There's still another good number that it needs to put into its repertoire, specifically that I work here in Brampton. So a lot of the South Asian languages, it's not so fluent on, but the European languages, I found it very, very, very helpful. And to tell you a little bit about the UK Relief app. So if you really look at what our issues are, I'm a palliative care physician and medical oncologist. And we have probably 250 new patient consults a month, and we've got 11 doctors. There were 10, but we now have 11 doctors, and there are 2 clinic nurses, 1 clerical associate. We're working in the outpatient clinic here just at the Brampton Civic of 10 half clinics. That's 5 full days a week. And we have people working into the community. This is pre-COVID that we had doctors going out into the community 3 to 5 full days per week in order to see patients. So that's a good number of patients that we've seen. At that stage, it was 120 appointments per month. And it's, as I said, it's now over 200. And people are out there in the community, and they don't always have nurses that are visiting them or that are phoning them. And they patients that really would like to participate in their own care. You know, very often as an oncologist would lift up an X-ray and say, well, Mrs. Jones, your lung cancer is getting better. And she'd say, yeah, it may be, doctor, but I'm still very short of breath. And we know today that patient-reported outcomes are really the very important way forward. So our pressures, as you can see, are that urgent visits have to be triaged, and that's what we see as urgent, not necessarily what the patient is seen as urgent. The wait times for the consultations really can get quite extensive, and what's happening to the patients in between. And because we see a lot of new patients, there's we have to ask ourselves who has enough symptoms and should be triaged that we should have that follow-up time brought forward. So uCarenet came along, and along with us, we did an environmental scan to see were there other e-health applications available. And there were very few at that time. We started in May 2018, and there were very few. As you can see, there were just about 29 articles that came out that we then went in and for 10 years looking, using the words mobile apps or mHealth or palliative care. Next slide, please. And in palliative care, all we saw that there were just 4 studies. Some were using mobile phones, some were using a digital-based app, some were looking just at pain, and others weren't mentioning any specific symptoms. So we could see that this was a way forward. Please, next slide. Knowing, of course, that there were some results coming out that were incredibly significant. And these two these have subsequently been replicated many times. And that's looking at using a web-based application compared with standard modalities, where patients were actually reporting their symptoms and on a web-based app, and depending on what those symptoms were reporting and the reactions and the subsequent treatment were all taken into account. And they saw that this was a variety of cancers, that those patients that were using the web-based application had an overall survival of 22.4 months. And in those patients that were just getting the usual care, it was significantly less at 16.7 months. So at that stage, people were saying, well, what is it? Well, why are these patients living longer? Are they reporting their symptoms and being treated earlier or being recognized earlier and getting the correct treatment earlier? And this was the thought process, that if patients could now participate in their own assessment, that healthcare providers, the nurses and the doctors, were getting a better idea of where they were in their disease, and patients were then part of that partnership. And along came Ethan Bausch, this was a big study presented at the American Society of Clinical Oncology, and he once again reported on patient-reported outcomes. That's what is the patient telling you and how are you responding? Doctor, today my pain I feel is a 6 out of 10. Yesterday it was a 4 out of 10. Not that I as a physician think, well, this guy's got really bad pain, it's worse than it was yesterday, but that you're actually beginning to quantify it according to what the patient is telling you. And here again, they started seeing that there was a statistically significant difference in the overall survival. So patients were living longer if they were using this web-based app. As you can see, the difference on that stage was 5.2 months. Next slide, please. So we decided that we were going to do a pilot study. That is, we were going to take about 20 patients in our program. These were outpatient patients in the outpatient setting that were still ambulatory and that had metastatic cancer and that were experiencing symptoms, whether it be the 11 common symptoms: pain, nausea, vomiting, tiredness, shortness of breath, anxiety, depression, constipation, those kind of symptoms that people with advanced cancer have. And we partnered with uCarenet and wrote up a grant that went to the Center of Aging and Health Brain Innovation, and they gave us $50,000 in order to design the app and do the particular study. And we wrote up the protocol and presented it to our REB, and they approved it at the end of May 2018. Next slide, please. And this is kind of what the app looks like. This is what the clinician will see. So the patients would have the app downloaded onto their phone or onto their computer. They would every day report according to their symptoms. So I've already told you some of them are on what we call the ESAS, the Edmonton Symptom Assessment Scale, which looks at those common symptoms. And every day they would say, well, today is 2 out of 10. Tomorrow we'll see maybe it's 4 out of 10. And depending on how much that level increased would either then give us a green alert, a orange alert, or a red alert. And every day, so that is what we would see. This is what the clinician would see, because all of those came to a dashboard. Please, next slide. And this is what the patient would see. As you can see on that scale, those are the most common symptoms that we see. And when the patient would log onto the app, this is what they would see. And then, as I say, this would trigger alert. If we got and we saw there was a red alert, somebody would phone the patient. If there was an orange alert, they would probably phone the patient as well. If there was a green alert, nothing would happen. Depending on what that person phoning the patient would see, would either bring the patient into clinic, or we would organize a virtual visit. We were doing OTN at that time, or we said if it really gets bad, we'd bring the patients into the hospital. Obviously, what we were trying to do is keep patients in their own home, because we know that the majority of people do not want to come to a hospital. You know, it's over 80%, 90% of people would actually prefer to die in the comfort of their own home. But at the moment in Ontario, 50 to 60% of people die in hospital. This was before COVID. They were dying in hospital. So we knew that there was a disconnect somewhere. And this was to, as we said originally, to give the right treatment to the right patient in the right time by the right person. Next slide, please. And these were our metrics. You see, there were 20 patients recruited. There were 5 patients that withdrew from the study because most of them died. The incidence of non-compliance reported symptoms, we did see there were patients that weren't doing every day. And so what we realized is that we don't have to have it every day. There were patients who called for symptom support, who called for technical support. Those were 133 triggers were triggered. 60 people got a telephone intervention. 5 of those people needed a clinic intervention. 1 person, actually, we went out and did a home visit. There were people requiring telephone interventions without that trigger being alerted, without that red trigger, but rather an orange trigger that was being alerted. And the 1 person that came to the ED was a person that's CAD pump stopped working, and there was no nurse to go out at 2 o'clock in the morning, so the patient came to the ED. And we can see that even whilst during the period of the study, there were 4 patients that actually had a hospital admission, and 2 people actually died in their own home, which is what we wanted to do. And we had only one person that died in hospital whilst on this particular study. Next slide, please. So we concluded that there were 80% that were active in their own health monitoring, and 100% who were compliant and were able to communicate these symptoms. And 80% of patients completed daily their assessment that they should have done. And we showed a statistic that there was definitely a decreased amount of hospital admissions. And more important is we saw that really over 90% of clinicians reported that they were now more confident in treating their patients at home. And 92% felt that their patients themselves had a better experience, because that's what their patients were telling us. And that this related to 3/4 of us clinicians really thinking that the quality of life for the patients were better. They were being treated in their own home. They weren't having to phone 911. They weren't having to come to the ER and wait sometimes hours when all it was maybe needed was a dose adjustment. And these are some of the patient testimonials that came out, that my pain was really livable because we knew that you were there with us. We weren't alone. See, if we understand that majority of patients with palliative care needs never want to feel as if they are helpless, hopeless, and abandoned. So to have hope doesn't necessarily only imply a favorable outcome, but it means that you've got a good team with you that will do their best in order to give you the best that they can, the best that you can get. So you're not alone, you don't feel abandoned, you're not helpless, and you're not hopeless. If you're not helpless, you'll be able to report, and somebody's going to listen to what you're reporting. So somebody once said, I'm so thankful that you were here for me as well as for my daughter. Next slide, please.
Oh,
Next
sorry.
slide. So I was very grateful that Nectari and myself met, and that the nurses really helped us put this together, and the physicians as well as the patients. Some of them were at 2018. They were a little bit unsure of what the technology and were they going to be able to manage the technology. But due to the incredible backup that they had, if something went wrong, they had backup from a technical point of view as well as from a medical point of view. So I see this the way forward. What has happened is that this particular app got a high impact practice award, and Health Canada approached us and asked us to write another grant, and we've just been awarded that grant to take this particular app to communities that are more on the minority communities, like the homeless. As you can imagine, this will help a lot, to the francophones that are in Ontario and to the anglophones that are in Quebec, as well as some of our indigenous populations and French-speaking populations up north in North Bay and Thunder Bay. So it's certainly got the attention from government, and we certainly are quite excited about moving this forward and how we're going to further develop the app to allow the patients maybe that we could do a blood pressure or listen to their heart with a stethoscope, or do some, to allow them to a pulse as well as oxygen saturation, etc. So it's the way forward. Technology is certainly helping. The other thing that we could say is that one nurse could probably in the community look after maybe 25, 30 patients, and then go and see patient A, B, C, and D on Monday and E, F, G on Tuesday. Whereas now she'll get an alert from the app, and we'll say, well, you need to go and see patient Z today because that's the patient that needs your help. So in a way, what we're now seeing is not only equality, but it's equity. So the person that needs the most treatment is getting the right treatment at the right time. And the person that doesn't really need to have that visit today because there's somebody else that needs it more, will not get it on that day, but will get it as a priority when they need it. So I'm very grateful. I think this is a great idea. And I think specifically now in COVID, where patients cannot come in, this is an invaluable tool. So thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Dr. Chason. And I think it's really important to emphasize, as what Dr. Chason said, this is an opportunity to build scale within the health system, because as we heard, one nurse can now monitor many more patients. And by triaging them remotely, we have the opportunity to send the right resources in. So this is a really good opportunity for us. And then for us, society. And then second, by building in some of the more advanced biosensors that Dr. Chason is saying, over and above it being a qualitative analysis of how the patient's feeling, now doctors will also be able to check their blood pressure, listen to their heart rate, check their oxygenization. So this starts moving into much more of a true virtual care platform. So we're really excited about working with Dr. Chason. His mentorship has been great. He's got a very, very soft, gentle approach, but that gentleness is what's always pushing the team and stretching us to make sure we're doing as good of a job as we can. So we'll turn it over now to any questions. And if people have any questions for myself or Dr. Chason, we'd be happy to answer them.
I saw there was one question, has this been rolled out? No, it hasn't really been rolled out at OSLA, because remember, this is really an app that I believe should be in the community. We need this to be monitored by the nurses in the community and not in a hospital. We did it in a hospital, but it's being taken out into the community. And that's what this whole Health Canada grant is about, is taking it out into the community, that the family physicians will be able to monitor their own patients in the community so that they keep them in the community and don't bring them to hospital. So it's really more for nurses and family physicians within the community. And hopefully that the grant will eventually roll out into this being the standard of care.
Thank you so much, both to Dr. Chason and Nectari. I think I'm speaking on behalf of everyone, saying that was a very inspiring overview of your amazing work. We definitely appreciate it. So I am going to open it up to questions. We have some questions in the chat, which I'm going to go through and ask our panelists to kindly respond to. But just as a reminder, please feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A box and also in the chat. I'll be going through them, and at any point you would like to turn on your mic, we had that before in these sessions. Partnerships have been formed during these sessions, so feel free to raise your hands, and I think I'll have the functionality to unmute you so you can take part in the conversation. So one of the main questions that we were getting is about the market plans. So I think you spoke to that earlier, but I'm going to just bring up some of these questions. One was specifically about Nova Scotia and any plans you may have on entering that market, or it's already accessible by individuals living in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, so we did do some tests within the maritime provinces, specifically Nova Scotia and St. John's, to see how the recruitment will come along. What we found in the beginning is we focused on families, but we didn't have enough care providers for families to select from, so that didn't go well. So we ran an initial pilot with William Osler, and that's where I met Dr. Chasen. That was with her chief of research. And a lot of the feedback that came back is we need more choice, we need more supply. So our attention has been on the care providers. Now that we have, I guess, a repeatable model, we are launching our new website, our new website. It's all meant to make it easier for families to post as well as for care providers. We want to run that for about another 30 days here in Ontario in a geography, so we can make sure it's working perfectly and we're addressing the concerns of families. And then by June, we plan to roll out to the families. That doesn't mean care providers cannot start signing up and getting themselves ready for other provinces. Just that from a family perspective, we'll be ready in June.
Perfect. And another, I guess, a follow-up question from John, who asked how you are recruiting caregivers.
Yeah, so primarily through word of mouth. We use a lot of different venues. We do educational events. We go to a lot of seminars that we speak to. Our word is actually getting around. There's nothing more fulfilling and rewarding as somebody that's trying to start up a company and running it, when all of a sudden you introduce yourself from uCarenet and you hear, oh yeah, we heard about that. So I think it is a matter of word of mouth. It's quite a bit about education and digital advertising that's helping us to get the recruitment going.
Great, thank you. I guess a potential here is John, as he introduced himself kindly in the chat. He is on the board of Community Links that ties the community organization and seniors in Nova Scotia. So there may be some parallels there. I'm going to follow with another question from all very good comments. I'll read through them for you. But there was a question from Christine about the languages. If you can give us some example of the languages that were featured. I think it was previous to where you mentioned the number of the languages, which was very impressive. But so how many you have, and what are some of the examples? I think
Yeah, so I'll just read them off. We have 17 languages. I think we got pretty good coverage if we start from the east. So we have both Mandarin and Cantonese. We have Hindu. We got Punjabi right now. We got Urdu. So we got a pretty good representation. We have a lot of the European languages, and most of them. I'm sorry, we also have Vietnamese, and we have a lot of the European languages as well. So in total, we have 17 languages. Of the 17, only 15 have an AI portion for the voice-to-voice translation right now. So unfortunately, Punjabi is not one where we have automated voice-to-voice translation. And that's really a matter of our partner, Google, actually making that available. But as we do know, these AIs are coming out very, very rapidly. So it's just a matter of us integrating it. We do two things. One, we hire native speakers and we use them to pre-record all the languages. So now we will be growing our language base, and then it's a matter of the technology catching up as well. I do want to emphasize to John, thank you very much from Nova Scotia. We were very happy to release CareLingo last month, and for the first 60 days, we're making it for free. So anybody out there, John, you with Community Links, if you think any of your staff or your family could use it, or if anybody works within a care environment, you're a care professional, please download the app. It's going to be for free, and the more people that download it for free, the happier we will be. I think it's a really good app and can provide a lot of value.
Thank you, Nectari. I think John also asked for your contact info, so I'll leave it at the end of the session where you can hopefully exchange contacts or information on downloading the app. There were questions about insurance, and I'm going to ask them together. So one was from Hannah about. So the question is, does your caregivers all have insurance coverage? And I guess in that line, Christine also asked that does any insurance companies cover the cost of the apps currently?
Cover the cost of what?
Of the apps.
Oh, okay, that's an interesting question. Yeah, so let's talk about the insurance, and let's talk about what we as a platform enabling technology does. We are not an agency, right? We're not here to replace agencies. We would like to complement them through our technologies. Same thing with the LINS. So it's our job to make it easier for people to procure and find people. We have workflows that are going to be coming out with our new version of our website that makes it very clear to families, right? This is what you should be doing. These are the steps. This is how you should screen them. When you're happy and you're screening them, make sure before you let anybody in your house that you do reference checks and you also do background checks. And then we have a partnership with one of Canada's leading background providers. So through the comfort of the care provider's home, for $30, they could actually get their criminal background check done and a reply back in 24 hours. The same thing with insurance. There are providers that provide insurance. A lot of care providers that are accredited could actually become members of the Ontario Personal Support Organization. And Miranda and her team actually provide insurance coverage through a broker. So you could either get your insurance through an organization like OPSWA. If you're a nurse, you get it through nurse or through any other insurance broker. We ourselves do not provide insurance for the individuals. It's our goal just to bring the technology to market so they could use it.
Thank you very much, Nectari. And to follow up, a very nice comment from Christine that she said it's great what you're doing, and she's asking how she can help to get the message out there. And I'm just going to answer with the one suggestion. As Christine kindly noted out, you can share the video of this presentation with your network, and I think that would be a good start. But I wonder if Nectari has more points on this.
No, that would be it. We love to work with a lot of people. I think I'm very fortunate. We have a lot of great people working for us, and they're all in this business along with me because they want to do good and they want to actually give back. So Christine, any ideas you have, you want to come and join us as a volunteer with the other volunteers we have to get the word out, we'd be more than happy to welcome you.
A question from Amy, and Amy, please feel free to let me know if you'd like to come out of mute and ask this yourself or any follow-ups. But her question is, can you clarify what criteria your booking app uses to match client and caregivers? So she gave examples. Is it like language, interests, how that matching happens?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I don't want to get into many of our details as to how we rank all those things because we've been tweaking it. But yeah, we do start geographic proximity because we do realize from a lot of the care providers that we spoke to, one of their big frustrations when working in home care is having to drive a very long distance or commute very long distances to get to their clients. So we start first from geographic location. We then start to the skill sets and the experience that families are looking for because those are the basics. We look at languages to make sure there's a language fit. We also look at the interest to see if we can find interest. There's a little matrix that happens behind the scenes, and that's how we rank the people and bring the matches forward.
Thank you very much, Nectari. And as said, Amy, if you had follow-up questions, please feel free to.
There's one thing I do want to mention. I was quite surprised how many second languages our care providers speak. I was also very surprised to find that there's a lot of fantastic and well-qualified people that are new arrivals in Canada who are either nurses or clinicians back in their country and they're not licensed here. And quite frankly, they want to work in the industry. And the other thing that I found is if you go back to the expert report that was written in 2515 and 2016 about the home care industry, I was surprised to see that 80% of all the support services are really for traditional homemaking. So, it's tidying up the house, helping prepare dinner, do the groceries, tidy up, help somebody with their hygiene. So as a result, the beautiful person next door, right? Man or woman, your neighbor is somebody that could fulfill this job. And one thing that we're doing to help build scale, especially at this time of the crisis in long-term care, where I think I read a report today, something like 49,000 new care providers or PSWs need to be hired, is they should. Long-term care is where we need a lot more experience in medical coverage. And that's where the big flow will go. And what we're doing is we're helping to build capacity by reaching out to non-accredited companion keepers, if you will, that have many, many years experience either tending to their own children or to their own families, or sort of big self-interest in getting trained and updating their skills, who are now coming to market and are available for families. So I think we're doing a good job in that area.
Thank you so much, Nectari. And a question from Paul, which it may be addressed to Dr. Chasen. So it's about the correlation between the reported symptoms and tracking and the delivery of the required interventions. Paul draws upon the part where you were talking about the significant delay between an event and the ability to get the patient seen by the appropriate specialist. In the study you conducted, Paul's asking, how did the time per patient compare to traditional models?
Okay. So that's exactly why we did the study. And because what would normally happen, a patient would say, start having, and I'm going to use pain, but it could be nausea, vomiting, anxiety, depression, constipation, shortness of breath, and tiredness. Those are the common kind of symptoms. And the patient notices this is getting a bit worse. So they wait and they wait. And by 5 o'clock in the afternoon, they can't anymore. So then they get in their car or they phone 911 and they go to the ER. Or they try and get hold of their physician. And the physician says, okay, he's not seeing the patient now, but he can't get an appointment. Or the receptionist says, I'll tell the physician. So there's a significant wait. Whereas now you've got somebody that's reporting and is actually quantifying how much worse that symptom is getting. And it's been proactively responded to. So instead of somebody's pain going from a 2 to a 4 today and tomorrow a 6, and then them coming to tell the doctor, we're picking it up at the 4 already, because that's when the red alert has been sent. And somebody's phoning that person and saying, well, what's the matter? Okay, I think we should titrate your pain medication. Or you're so nauseous that you're vomiting every day, the whole time now, or you're not eating. So let's change your medication. Let's give you this advice. If it doesn't get better, then we'll respond earlier. So that was the delay. That's why people didn't come to the ER. You said people only come to the ER if they really have to. Nobody really wants to sit at the ERs. Whereas here you've got somebody that's it's almost like admitting a patient to their own home. I tend to think of it, that's what we're doing. We're admitting patients to their own home and allowing them to tell us how they are actually feeling. I hope that answers your question, Paul.
Thank you, Dr. Chason. That's a very brilliant way of making things really patient-oriented. A question from Christine. We are down to our very last question, so I'm going to make this quick, is about the qualifications that one needs to register as a caregiver. Example, do they need schooling in the subject? So how would you go with that?
Okay, so again, as I said, we're whole focused on making the technology available. So yes, sorry, let me backtrack. I found some of the better caregivers that I have used and I've heard from families use didn't have formal PSW schooling. So I can't really give a specific answer to that, but we do have an opportunity for the care providers to identify their educational background, upload any certificates they have. Also, we're working, and I'm sort of pre-announcing, but we're working with one of the McMaster health groups to actually bring out a series of educational videos that they have created. So these are, doctor-led, doctor-created videos that we will make available for them to our care providers. And we're starting off first with a series of videos about how to deal with people with cognitive impairment. So there's always an opportunity to do ongoing training. There's other organizations out there which I never knew, and I worked as an orderly for a couple of years when I went to college, right? Like how do you lift somebody, you know? And one of the dangers is you never hold them by the hand because you could dislocate their wrists, right? So there's all these little tips and tricks. So long story short, we give them the opportunity to upload their educational certifications. We were working on developing educational formats or content for them. When I say developing, it's not us developing. I think we're a distributor, and that's what we do very, very well. So we're interested in working with all partners out there that have any educational material that we could then bring out to our channel. And that's how we're approaching those two venues.
Very much, Nectari. And on the topic of partnership, a bit different, but a question from Ian. I would like to read the nice comment from Ian that found this idea brilliant and really well done. Plus a question about whether or not the app is available for government-funded home care. I'm going to ask, just add to my question of, if not, do you see that being in your plans going forward?
I missed the last part. There was a little breakout in the video.
So,
if not,
if not, I would just, I was wondering about your opinion on the potential of this to be used for government-funded home care.
absolutely. So just to answer, so the app is currently available, both CareLingo as well as our uCarenet app. We call it uCare Map because it helps you map out your home care. They're both available on the Apple Store as well as Google Play. The app is for a free download, so is CareLingo for right now. These are definitely available for anybody that wants to use it, even for government-funded home care. Nothing would make me happier than if the agency communities out there or the home care organizations actually use the app so they could communicate with their families. This is a big problem. And it's not just customer service, it's just eliminating the stress and helping somebody keep their finger on the pulse. So we all know that these per home care workers jump from one person to another. By the time they get back to the office, give an update. By the time that update, which never happens, goes to the family, it's not acceptable today, right? We have better methods of communication. We're not back to 20 or 30 years ago. And I'm saying this respectfully. I don't mean to criticize. I would love if government-funded home and long-term care centers could actually use our apps either to translate or to use the app to send updates to the families just to give them a higher level of comfort that their loved one is taken care of and they're feeling okay that day.
Thank you very much, Nectari, and thanks everyone for their questions. I apologize that we may not get to all of them, but right, we're on time. So at this point, I'm going to thank our amazing speakers for introducing us to uCarenet. And thank our participants for being with us. If any final notes, Nectari or Dr. Chasen, you would like to add, now would be the time. If not, we can wrap up the session.
Well, thanks very much for having us. I'll come again if you invite.
Yeah, we'd love to give you an update. As Dr. Chason said, he recently got the Health Canada Award, so we're excited about working with him, and that'll start in 22 by the time we recruit. We are doing another community pilot, hopefully in the next 30 days, where we'll take this out to the community. So it's going to be an exciting time. And if anybody has any additional questions or wants to email me, please do. It's Nectari@uCarenet. And I'd be more than happy to have an opportunity to meet with all of you people. If we ever have any partnering opportunities, please let us know.
Thank you so much. So with that, I'm going to ask you to please provide your email or any other means of communication information about the app where it can be downloaded on the chat. It may be easier to access. And I'm going to wrap up the session. Again, thanks to everyone, but I'm going to I'm not going to close the chat so that everyone will have the time to copy and have that record to be able to reach out to you or download the app or take part in the community outreach you mentioned.